Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to be sharing my testimony with you all. If you haven't heard my testimony before. So my name is Davina. I was born in December of 1990. I grew up in a very big family, and close knit. We grew up really close. Me and my family, my siblings, cousins, most people, we grew up pretty close coming up. I am the second oldest of my mom's kids. My mom had 7 kids. First person that I ever remember passing away or dying was my father, my dad. My dad passed away when I was about six or seven. I grew up really poor, grew up in poverty. So we didn't have it, but my mom always found a way to make ends meet. I can't remember that much of how life was when my father was alive. But I do know that we struggled growing up, and my mom would do her best to make ends meet. I grew up in Newark, New Jersey. Shout out to Jersey. I had good times and bad times. So much fun playing outside, making new friends with the kids in the neighborhoods of the different places that I did live, and with my family members. My cousins were my first friends, actually, and we moved around a lot growing up. I can't remember how many places that we lived, but we did. Okay, it is what it is. I remember when times did get really bad, and we really didn't have it like that, and my mom, she was always cool with the people that worked at the corner stores. And, sometimes they had helped us out with groceries, for a short period. And just so thankful for that. Growing up, I was really shy, really quiet. I always had good intentions as far as I remember, but I was just really, really shy. I didn't express myself. I didn't really know myself either. I knew something. You're yourself, so you do know something about yourself, but it's like I had to develop to get to understand who I was more. I didn't see the value of who I was growing up, and I was just very timid, like really shy, quiet, and afraid to do certain things. I was afraid to explore. I Once I got a little bit older, my mind just starts to becoming curious about different things, but I was afraid to explore. So afraid that if I did something that might seem kind of fun, that I would get hurt. I was very, very obedient, which it is really good to be obedient. You should obey your parents' children, okay? That's in the Bible. I'll leave the scripture right here. But I was like just one of the most obedient kids that you can meet. Going to middle school. So I went to middle school in 2 areas, right? Yeah. Went to middle school in East Orange, New Jersey, and Newark, New Jersey. And contrary to belief, although Newark is very bad, the worst middle school that I ever been to was located in East Orange, New Jersey. I went to Hart Middle, and this was, what year was this when I was in middle school? I think I started in the year 2000, either the year 2000 or 2001, because I started middle school. Oh yeah, it was 2001, because I don't turn a new age until the very end of the year. So 2001 was when I first started middle school, and it was really, really bad. Hart Middle, it was just like a different type of school, a school that I like never. Yeah, Hart Middle was a school of its own. Even high schools, it was just so different. So I remember like going from class to class, different periods. So they had periods, and you don't just be in the same homeroom for all of the day. You go from, it's just like high school. You go from one classroom to the next. It was just so different. The lunch was popping though. I remember they had some good beef patties, and I always loved to have beef patties and pizza. Lots of schools didn't have beef patties for lunch, but most schools would have pizza. The pizza was always on point, I believe, and I remember those beef patties. Okay, that stood out to me that they had beef patties there. But yeah, the school, just wasn't good. Kids were fighting every single day. When I tell you every single day, every single day. And from what I remember, most of my classes, I remember in one of my classes, I can't even remember what class, like what, I think that was my homeroom class. I can't even remember what subject that was, but there was always a fighting there. Girls were fighting every day. Um, the dudes were fighting every day too. The kids are so grown, like advanced as far as being like grown and fresh, like potty mouths, like cursing and cussing a lot, using a lot of profanity, talking about sex, um, which that's when you're starting to really get to know about that, but just saying things as if they're doing it, it was just wow. Okay. I didn't have that many friends there. I did make a few friends. It was just one girl that I remember. She was really nice and kind. Her name was China. I don't know how she's doing today, but I remember her because she was always really nice to me. She was friends with some of the kids that were like bad too, but she was always really nice to me. She was a friend to me. We weren't like best friends or anything like that, but she would always speak to me in school and, talk to me. She probably even stood up for me before. And then I had another friend. I can't even remember her name, but my other friend, she was Jamaican. Well, now we were a little bit closer, although the other girl was so sweet, so I never forgot about her. But we were a little bit closer because we would walk home together too. And they had this Family Dollar store that used to be down the street from the school. So yes, that was one of my craziest memories from childhood growing up. I also went to school, middle school in Newark too. That was pretty bad. It was more hiking when I went to Newark. So when I went to Newark, that's when I experienced people hiking on different people more. They did a little in East Orange too. Um, but when I went to school in Newark, it was even more. Like people had tried to start hiking on me about my hairline because I had this boxy Indian style hairline that was just really different from all the other kids. And yeah, it was just a mess. And then moving on to high school. I went to high school for the most part in Newark, New Jersey, Shabazz. And then I went to school in Orange. So it's crazy. I ended up going back towards the Oranges. But yeah, school in Newark for high school, it was alright. The learning experience was okay. It wasn't that bad. I did have a chance to be in the math leagues. I don't know if that's what they called it, but basically, when I was in ninth grade, when I was a freshman, I was pretty good at math during that time. I'm not saying that I was good at math up until I graduated when things started to get harder, but I was pretty good at math in comparison to my other fellow classmates in the ninth grade. So my teacher, Mr. Remy, he wanted me to be in the math league. So but I never did it. Some kids had convinced me. I guess just like Mean Girls, they had convinced Katie to not do it because like it's you're considered to be a geek if you do something like that. So my first set of friends or my first set of people that I was cool with, not gonna mention their names, just in case they might get offended. But yeah, they told me not to do it, so I didn't. Okay, and me and those girls, we ended up being cool for the duration of me being there. Um, Still follow them on social media, but we're not like close or anything now. School was okay. I did have this one altercation. I didn't ever get into a fight, but I remember I was friends with this one girl and she was just starting to be more and more catty and throw shade towards me. So I wasn't feeling it. I wanted to call her out on her stuff. Um, Things didn't go as planned like I really wanted to. Everybody wanted to defend me. But she got the hint and she never bothered me again. We never even remained friends after that. We barely spoke after that situation. So, boom, I ended up moving from the area. Oh, let's talk about the area that I grew up in. I grew up on the Madison Avenue area, is where I have most of my memories growing up as a child. So many things have transpired in those areas, and I have so many good and bad memories for that from that time. But yeah. So going to middle school and high school, I was in that area of the Madison Avenue area. And yeah, I didn't go to elementary school, that Madison Avenue school, but I just remember meeting different people in the area, meeting one person, then meeting another two people, and I still know most of these people to this day. And yeah, great memories, and even crazy memories. Okay, growing up in high school, peer pressure is there. I grew up as I was shy, quiet, and obedient, and not just obedient to my mom, even obedient to my older brother, who wasn't that much older than me. He was 2 years older than me, but we were really close growing up. I kind of OD'd without even knowing, because my brother wasn't even that much older than me. But I am grateful for most things, because it kept me on the right path. And yeah, I was still really shy and nervous. Okay, but I was cute. So even though I was really shy, I kind of had it going on, if I must say. Like, most people would consider me pretty. I dressed really nice and up to date. I didn't have all name brand clothes. I knew how to mix and match, wear a few name brand clothing items and wearing some other stuff that you'll get from Main Street, downtown Nook, in the mall. Okay, mixing and matching. So I was a cute girl. I had long hair, wore my real hair, my natural hair straight, and just wore my real hair majority of the time. Here and there, I would get braids. I never even had weave besides going to the prom. But anyway, yeah, like I was really attractive. So although I was really shy, I looked good, okay, and that drew a lot of attention to guys. So lots of guys did have crushes on me, regardless of me being really shy and nervous. It's not like I was always nervous every few seconds, but I was nervous a lot, okay. Not that I had many boyfriends during my time in school and high school, but I got the attention from the guys, okay? And I had very few friends. I had some friends, but not a lot. Um, but yeah, I was really cool with guys. It was always, for some reason, easier for me to talk to guys. I guess because I grew up with lots of boys, I wasn't necessarily a tomboy, but I just grew up with boys and understood boys. So I guess that just made me feel more naturally, more comfortable, more calmer. And I was pretty close with my older brother, and then my younger brother, my youngest one, he looked up to me. Me and my other brother, that we were closer in age to each other, we didn't really get along together. We had good moments, but we didn't really get along. But the other two, we had a pretty good relationship, pretty decent relationship. So I was always, it just naturally, I guess, now that I'm looking back, I just always had the ease of being able to be more of myself with guys. So yeah, I did have male friends and girlfriends, but just a few, not a lot. Okay, and I was always cool with the people that were not American. I had American friends too, but I had a lot of friends that weren't. I think I talked about this in another video. I was a good girl, okay? So I wasn't doing bad things that kids start to do when they get to high school, like cussing. I never cursed. I think I said one curse during those times. Like, I will only curse when I got mad. I cursed like once or twice in my life during that time when I was still a teenager. Even in my adulthood, I barely curse. I just wasn't a cursor. I would only curse if I would get mad. Okay, and when I say curse, I'm referring to cussing. Okay, so I wouldn't do that. I was definitely still virgin, and I wasn't doing little freaky things. I wasn't taking pictures. No shade at anybody that has done this, but I wasn't taking pictures naked, sending that to anybody. Nobody wasn't looking at me naked. Um, you know, not a perfect person, of course. Eventually, you do things that you're not supposed to, but initially, I wasn't doing those things. I was like, when I would say I was a virgin, I was a real virgin. No interaction at all, okay? And I guess I made, like, I just wasn't trying to do that. My mom and my brother told me, well, especially my mom told me not to do those things, and then I was just too nervous to do that anyway, thinking about what if I get pregnant and all of those things. I just wasn't up for it. Although, you're a teenager, but I just wasn't up for it. Okay, so eventually throughout my whole high school years, I remained that way. Okay, let's just say that. While hearing about friends start to become more promiscuous, or even if they're not promiscuous, wow, like they're becoming more promiscuous, and or just doing the thing, doing the do. And I wasn't like super duper prude-ish, but I just wasn't doing those things, okay, at all. So seeing everybody go through their phase, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, it happened for them. But it didn't happen for me. I wasn't trying to do that. I thought about it, but I didn't, okay? But and then as I got a little bit older, went to college, it was still that way, and I started to become more curious about that. But it was just like it was never. And okay, I'm a woman of God now, but I wasn't thinking on that level yet back then. Here and there, some of those thoughts came to my mind about trying to learn more about the word, the Bible, and be more Christian like, but I just wasn't on that level, okay, to be honest. Some people are, but I wasn't, okay, and that's okay. Starting to be more curious about that, and you know, it just never happened for me that way. Like, it just was never the right time, never the right person, or anything like that. And I just started to have doubts about myself. I knew that I was a beautiful girl, but even though I felt that I was, sometimes I did have my doubts, like, oh, well, maybe this and that, I started feeling a little insecure, okay? And I was the only one that was still like that. So close ones that I grew up with that was around my age group have already experienced that. Friends that I grew up with and other classmates have already experienced that. And I was the only one, like in my early 20s, still, just wondering when is that time going to happen, and debating, like, well, I'm getting closer and closer to being a little bit older and I could get married. Should I just wait till I get married, or should I just, experience that? So I didn't have the made up mind. I wasn't super secure in myself, like how some people nowadays get to, because we have all these people encouraging you to do the right things, and all we have so much different information and resources now outside of the Bible. With the Bible plus those resources, I didn't really have that. All we had was the word and people telling you, save yourself, do the right thing, don't do that, that's fornication, that's that, but I didn't see anybody living it out. Heard of one person in my family, but besides that, that wasn't common. That wasn't. And then I was like in the straight up hood too. That was even more uncommon. People having babies left and right, all these different things. And I didn't even have a long term relationship yet in my early 20s. So, yeah, I just felt like the outcast in that department. I felt like a sore loser in a way. And I just wasn't confident in that. I didn't feel confident in that. Like some people, they are like really confident, like, yeah, I'm saving myself, or yeah, I'm this, I'm a virgin. I wasn't confident like that. If I could go back with some of the things that I know now, I would be confident, you know? I wasn't confident being a slim, skinny woman either, being a virtuous woman or being virtuous in that area, okay? Because it's more than that. Being virtuous is more than just not giving someone your body. So I just didn't have the confidence, okay? So that being said, I ended up slipping up and doing that, just to say, and not even just because of that, but, all in all, I became happy that I didn't have to say that I was that anymore. I felt more like a woman, or like that would make me become a woman. So I gave into temptation in that area with someone that I didn't even care about, just to say that I'm not that anymore. It's just so I could say that I'm just like everybody else now, or I'm normal now. Not knowing that I could have just waited a little bit longer, wait a couple more years, and boom, God probably would have placed the right person in my life. But boom, so that happened. And still a good girl, whatever. I was never in I was never into the clubs. Like that was never my vibe, or never really my thing. I did attend like a bar and like what's those places? Lounges. I did attend those places here and there a couple of times in my life, but it was never my thing. I always felt uncomfortable. I think part of that was just because of me being shy, but then also I feel like that was God too in certain ways of me not feeling comfortable because that's not what God had in store for me. Not that God had that in store for any of those other people that did like it, but it's just like I know like God wanted to use me for different purposes. And just imagine if I would have waited too, you know. God restores you, but if I would have been continue to be pure, Pure, how much greater God could have used that too, you know? Um, so yeah, I just was never my vibe. So I never really got too wild in my life, to be honest. I just made the decision not to, and it just was never my thing. Boom, I'm in my 20s, right? And now I'm starting to question, like not question God, but just question my faith and want more of my in my faith. This happens during the time that I attend my home church. I have only been a part of three churches. So my first home church that I grew up in was from birth up until the church that I'm talking about now, which I consider my home church. And my mom felt that we should transition to a new church, and eventually my pastor that I grew up with, that was actually my great aunt, she ended up passing away. So we had the pastor that I that church, my home church that we attended, and then God led me to go to my church that I am in now. But yeah, my home church, like when I first got there, and I was there for about 10 years, and I was in my early 20s. Actually, I was still that way. I was still Pure when I first got to this church. So, and me deciding to do that and have anything about the teaching or anything, if anything, they told you to not go that way, okay? But yeah, this is when I first really want to get to know more about God. So I, I was a teenager and a kid and all that stuff back then. I always loved to listen to the word. That's one thing. I wasn't so into praise and worship all of my life. I did, it was a period of time where me and my little sisters had to go up for praise and worship to do it. And I was in the choir, but I remember I did always really like to hear the word of God growing up. I remember that. And I love to hear what people would come and prophesy. Not that we should idolize or anything, but growing up as a young kid, and even a young teenager, it really did somewhat fascinate me to see other people prophesy. It was just intriguing for me, to be honest, and I'm pretty sure it was that way for many people too. If we're being honest, I always enjoyed that portion of the service. If anybody had that gift, or if they would come to prophesy, I really did like it. I was just like, wow, God gets to use that person like that, or that person is able to do that. And I just always love to hear the word. But I wasn't into it like how I should have been until I got to what I consider my home church. So I was in my early 20s, and that's when I started to hear more and more of the word and start to pay more attention and be more into it. And then I had got prophecies spoke over to me, things that nobody had ever told me before. Some were things that people had told me throughout the years here and there, but then it just became more profound, more prolific, and more pronounced during that time. And the pastor there, she would speak so many she would tell me things about myself too that I need to work on, of course, but she would speak things to me like, and I felt the presence of God too and the power of God when she would say it. And it's just like began to want to know more about God, and I became more aware of myself. I was still had to work on my confidence in myself, but I became more aware of myself, and I was just like, wow, I never thought this about me. I knew I was the cute, pretty girl. I knew I was the good child, but to know this about me, um, that I'm special, I'm called, I'm chosen, having a robe wrapped around me. It was just, and then her even seeing that I was what someone would call virtuous during that time, and I didn't tell anybody that. You know, it was just wonderful to hear those things. Um, Even though I still decided to make my decision that I did because I wasn't confident enough in my head. But yeah, that's when I really started to get to know more about God, and I made a conscious decision to grow. You know, I was slowly growing. So when I would go to service, I would cry out a lot. Like, I'm a babe in Christ during that time, and I would just become very sensitive to the Spirit. I'll feel when the Holy Spirit is there, and I still do. And it was just like I would just become so conscious, and what's the other word? Convicted. So I would just pour out when I was there at service, you know. And this is when we was in the first home church, the home church that my pastor started, or my pastor and her husband started together before her husband passed away, before we had went over to the new church. And I've just felt the Holy Presence so heavy many a times, and how the pastor's daughter was used, and the pastor's daughter, when she would come up there, I was always 90% out of 100 feel the Holy Presence when she would speak. And I would just feel so connected to her spiritually. I was closer to the pastor than I was to her, but I would always just feel like when she would cry out to God and when she would speak in tongues, I would just feel the presence of God, and it was just uncontrollable for me. And when the pastor would too, and me and the pastor ended up becoming close, and I was slowly learning. I still wasn't completely there yet, but I wanted to know more about God, and I wanted to serve God. So I was okay. I was a little mediocre Christian and a babe in Christ still, but I consider myself to be saved, and I don't know, what I say, sanctified? Saved and sanctified, living for God. Okay. So then boom, some years go by me being there, and I turned about 24. Oh, actually, before I get there, I was about 22, 23, maybe 22. And I started dating my first guy that I met in church, okay? So this guy, and I wasn't even paying attention to him like that, okay? Him and his friend. Both were prophets. So one was considered a minister during that time, and one was a prophet, okay? They were both in training though, okay, to be ordained as those things. So we were all three of us cool. So they were like almost best friends. And I ended up becoming cool with them. So I wasn't ever paying attention to them like that, to be honest. I was just paying attention to the word. I had learned to shout for the first time there. Like, I think I shouted before that, but that's when I felt more confident shouting and had my own little shout. I never could do the little cute shout, but I had my own thing when I would like jump up and down. But yeah, I ended up meeting them somehow. I can't remember how. I think my mom had told me some things. I became cool with the both of them. Okay. Not knowing that both of them had a crush on me, or both of them thought I was good looking. Okay. But I was just cool with both of them, and then eventually the one guy that was considered the minister during that time, who was actually a prophet. Well, he was a minister in training and was actually a prophet. And he asked me out. Like, he asked me for my number somehow, and I ended up giving him my number, and he asked me out, not knowing that the other guy was interested in doing that first. Ended up going out with him. Okay. I ended up really liking this guy and was hoping that this guy was the one. Okay. So this is one of the first people that I thought was the one. One of the first people. Okay. So I thought that this one could be the one because he was a nice looking guy. Wasn't really my type, but he had nice features. He had this great big personality. He was a minister. So, and he had big dreams, like big goals. So I thought like he would be the perfect person. We gelled pretty well together. I really liked this guy. Okay. So boom. The other guy comes along. Okay. I'm still friends with both of them. But the other guy pops up in my DMs, or my messages, and I can't remember what he says, but he asked me some type of question or something. All right, I can't remember, but eventually a tale comes out to say that I was talking to the both of them. Like, I've talked to the both of them. The other one that was the prophet during that time already had asked me out, and then I started going out with the minister, knowing that I was only friends with the both of them. Never said anything flirtatious to the other one or either one of them at first, and never ever said anything flirtatious to the prophet. But I started to date the minister. So I guess like he was in his feelings, and he started that rumor because he wanted to get to me first. He wanted to talk to me, but he just didn't get to me first. Okay. So, like, this becomes a thing in the church, okay? And I'm like, what? This never happened. Okay. Um, so yeah, that happened. I ended up still being cool with him, but at a distance, more or less. I'm like, no, that never happened. We never did anything. We never talked on the phone. He lied and said that we was talking on the phone and stuff. Never talked on the phone with him. All he did was send me a message about something. I can't even remember what it was. I don't even think I could even check because that was my other Facebook page. But yeah, so I'm still continuing on dating the guy that was considered the minister, that was actually a prophet, okay? And it's confirmed that he's a prophet when somebody else comes to the church and prophesies to him. And he already knows he is because, when you're a prophet or prophetic, you know these things, but it's just like sometimes you're waiting on that final confirmation or whatever. You just go with the flow. Really, and we're all really young in our early 20s. I think the minister that I was dating, he was either 1 or 2 years younger than me, but he was very mature and experienced. He was more experienced than me. Okay, so I looked up to him. Like, he was always trying to push me to like grow stronger spiritually. Honestly, I could say that he was always trying to push me to grow stronger. So sometimes I just wanted to talk and flirt, and then he's like, nah, we need to pray. We were like in church and we had like a shut in. Oh, Davina, you look at me. Don't pray. Goes back down there and pray. Not that I was trying to be a hindrance to him. I didn't know that I was being a hindrance in certain ways, eventually. But yeah, he was pushing me to do the right thing. I can see that. But eventually, I found out that he was still dating someone else, or at least still talking to them. And I had a dream about this. So I had a dream that I was looking out the window. I talked about this in a few of my other videos. I was basically in that show looking out the window, and I saw him buy a car, kissing another woman. And I remember just looking at the window and just being really sad and crying. And it was more like a vision type of a dream. It was more of a vision. It wasn't so many symbols and all of those things. Not that that scenario happened, but yeah. So I eventually told him about it, and he told me that it's true that he was still seeing this other girl. And he eventually tells me some things that God told him, like, hey, that God was saying, hey, this is my daughter. Don't play with my daughter. If you're not serious about her, leave her alone. So we still end up talking a little bit even after that, honestly. But then a little bit after that, we end up, breaking it off or whatever. I found out that he dated somebody else in the church too. Like, this is crazy. I don't know. I think that he started dating this other girl after we broke it off. But I even found out that he dated somebody else before me that I didn't know, that was close to the people in the church. That's all I'm going to say. I didn't know that before we started dating, okay? I really didn't. But I didn't know that until after the fact. And he had a way with the woman. He was charismatic. He had the gift of gab. So if he needed to lie, he could do that. I'm not trying to say anything bad about him because I do respect him as a person, but he had the gift of gab during that time. I didn't. So yeah, boom. That ends up ending. Then once I got to 24, I started dating somebody else. And somebody else that I never thought would date, honestly. I did not think I would date him. But we ended up hitting it off eventually, and I really liked him, and I really loved him. So I thought this was the one too. And man, we dated for a short period of time. Really good. I get along with his daughter. I mean, his daughter love each other. His daughter loves me. I remember when we had this really intimate moment, and his daughter says, I love you, Davina. I'm like, oh, I love you too. Like, oh, I really liked his daughter. I really loved her. Really loved and cared about him too, and I got along with the mother too. And that was something that I always wanted to with a mother-in-law. I always prayed, like, God, whoever I be with, I want to be close to the mother-in-law too. Like, I want to naturally feel connected to that person. Um, because if my husband's not there, or say he's out and about and I have to stay with his mother or anything like that, I want to feel good and close to that person too, including, if he has a sister, I want to feel close and connected with that person too. So, we could go shopping together and stuff. So I felt that way. I felt that way with his mom. His sister was cool, was okay. So it was pretty good. So I felt like this was the one too. And eventually he proposed and we were set to get married. But some things happened, some things transpired. Um, my brother wasn't feeling it, okay? I'm not gonna get into all the details of it. Um, but my brother felt like he was trying to rush things and he just wanted to do it for the wrong reasons, for sex. Um, and in the beginning, we were off to the right start, to wait. But things happened and we eventually did. Okay, I didn't do anything with the other guy. Nothing happened between us, besides kissing, you know, things that people do when you date, but nothing sexual, no sex. Okay, this one, yes, okay, that ended up happening. But so my brother thinks that he just wants to marry me because of that. And also, he starts to make plans about the wedding without me. Like after he proposed that same day, he gets up in front of the podium to tell everybody, hey, wedding is going to be this day. You didn't talk to me about this. It's almost like the Coming to America movie. The guy was good enough to marry the girl, or he had some good qualities to marry the girl, Lisa. I think that was her name. But he tried to make decisions without her. It was kind of like that. But I didn't make it, and it's crazy because I didn't even really make it a big deal. But it started to come to me like, wow, he really shouldn't have done that. So yeah, he did that without my permission, send up a date. Not that one half married him there in that time, but he made up a date by himself or with his mom. And yeah, so it was set for 2 months after the original date was set for 2 months after the time that he proposed to me, which was the day before my birthday. Okay. So that was like a red flag. But we still carry on with the relationship. We're engaged. I'm spending even more time with him. I started spending the night over the house, everything. So things start to become more advanced, more promiscuous between us. I'm still carrying on the relationship. Most people don't know, at least they're not saying it. And we're carrying out with the relationship, okay? Thinking that we're gonna get married and all of that. But then eventually, while I'm still in the relationship, a prophet comes to visit the church. And the prophet prophesies to me and says he was familiar with the church. Like he came to the church a couple of times. And he did know that I was engaged, but he knew nothing about me. So I remember him saying, like, all I know is that you just got engaged. And then he started telling me stuff like, hey, and his sisters were like his sister was a prophet, okay, but he didn't consider himself a prophet. He said he's not a prophet. I guess God just uses him occasionally to prophesy, but God uses him more strongly in another area. Okay, so he prophesies to me though, and he's like, basically that God's gonna let some things happen or transpire in my life that's not easy, that's gonna be hard. Like some hard things are gonna come up in my life. And I remember him saying that. He said, all I know about you is that you just got engaged. And it wasn't like it didn't come off bad or anything like that, but I was a little concerned. I didn't know how to take it. So my fiance's mother during that time had said, you don't have to take everything that everybody say. You don't have to receive everything that everybody says. So I'm like, okay. So eventually it begins to become time for me to move. And I wanted this. I wanted my own place. Of course, once we had got married, we were gonna have our place together, but I needed to get a place of my own. Before that, I believe, yeah. So I start to get ready to look for my place in the midst of me getting ready for the wedding and things like that, looking for wedding dresses, all that stuff, blah blah blah, right? So looking for that. My grandmother is approaching me about these things because I was living with her during that time too, before that situation about me living in Ohio and stuff. This was like a few years before that. And so I'm looking for places and stuff. So it gets time to the time that I supposed to leave. Or no, actually I wasn't feeling it and I decided to leave. And I asked my older sister, we have the same dad, and I asked her if I can stay with her for a little bit. And she says yes. She says yes. So I come stay with her, and I tell her, I'm gonna be moving out soon, get married, and I'm gonna be looking for my own place. So I guess I was gonna just live in a place first, and then he was gonna move in. So yeah, I remember I was looking for places. So eventually, and that turned into a disaster. I was grateful for it, but different things transpired, and my little nephew was being rude to me, and it was just, and other things happened. My time was running out up in there. I went past the time that I was supposed to stay there. It just wasn't good. Half the time I was there, half the time I was at my fiance, the guy that I was engaged to during that time, his house, for leisure while I was living with my sister. And my sister wasn't really asking for much. Only thing I had to do was pay the one of the bills, and that wasn't a lot of money. So I start looking for places, and I'm getting denied left and right because either my credit is not good or I don't have pay stubs. I was a hairstylist still back then. Um, I didn't have a second job. Okay, so those doors are being closed. I can't find a place to live, and then eventually my sister says it's time for me to go too. Like, hey, Davina, it's past the time when you're supposed to stay here. What are you doing? You need to leave. And I can't get an apartment. Okay, and I'm still staying with her. And then eventually me and that fiance breaks up. He says it's too many rules. Like, he never, like, besides him saying it's too many rules, blah blah blah, he never really, like, I never really understood why he broke up with me. He didn't want to work it out at all. So I had to go with the flow eventually. I did try to break it out and all of that stuff, but eventually I let it go. Soon after we officially break up, I see him like flirting with all these girls. Like, I see him on Facebook, and this girl's you could write on somebody's page. He rolled this girl's page and everything. Seeing certain church members say something back to the girl, like saying hi to the girl. You're entitled to speak to people, but like, dang. Like, I felt some kind of way, kind of. I wasn't mad at this person, but I'm like, dang, you over there speaking to this girl when you were just encouraging me to be with this guy and all that. And we just broke up, and he all over here flirting with this girl, trying to get with her. And then one of my brothers told me that he saw him downtown flirting with this girl. So it's like he was so soiling. Is that how you say it? Soiling his royal oats or his oats, his wild oats, whatever you want to call them. He was doing his thing soon after he broke up with me. So it's like, it was crazy. Okay, so I was busted and disgusted, couldn't find a place. I was heartbroken because I really, really thought that was the one. And I really wanted to work out. I saw so many people that was getting married. So I was like, oh my God, I wasn't hurt, embarrassed. I was just heartbroken. Okay. And then this was just the icing on the cake. Okay. While still living with my sister, trying to figure things out. Okay. I get a phone call very early in the morning. I'm on my way to getting ready for work. Okay. Get a phone call from somebody, a family member, saying that my brother passed away. Okay. This is the brother that I've been close to for all these years. Not that we did everything together and, but we were intimate as far as like we shared different personal things with each other. Like, he shared so many intimate details with me that he probably didn't share with most people. Okay. So we didn't really hang out, once we got a certain age. He did his things with his friends and other people that was like more fun, more wild. But we our relationship was like personal. I could confide in him. He could confide in me. He confided in me more than I confided in him, honestly. And just looking up to that person and him being my protector, he protected me from so many different things. And to hear that that person is no longer here to do that for me, to protect me, he's no longer here for all those things. That's what the first things I thought about. And I just can't believe it. He's also not here. He had a child before he passed away, and then he even, was having another child that he didn't even get to know about, as far as we know. As God told him, he's not going to be here for her, and he's not going to be here for that new child. We didn't even know that until a few months after, or a few months after that, found out he passed away. He's never gonna be able to get married. All those thoughts, and then this situation happened too with them not getting along. All these thoughts just happen in my head, and I'm just at my breaking point. Like, I'm heartbroken, and now I'm even more heartbroken that my brother that I love dearly is no longer here, and he's not going to be here. So I was just very down during this time, very sad, very heartbroken, very disturbed and distraught. So I just don't know what to do. So eventually, I moved. I moved back in with my mom. My mom is living in PA, so I move in with her. I get these odd jobs, jobs I'm not used to working. I was just so used to being an entrepreneur, doing things like that, and I would have those type of like working that doing something that's like entrepreneurial or summer job. So this was like my first ever job that I ever had. So this was like my first like by the book type of job. So I had these little not side jobs, these little odd jobs, working. Okay. Then we moved to Ohio. I'm doing the same thing, and I'm doing here, and I do start up a little, have a little section in the barbershop that I call my own. I'm really managing the place, but I was able to call it my own salon. That didn't work out at all. Lasted. It was very short, but I am grateful to the guy, Garth, that allowed me to do it, and that he had grace for me during that time. He did believe in me, and I had so much fun with them. I learned a lot from them, and I learned a lot from that situation, good and bad, you know. So I live in Ohio for a little bit. This is where, actually, PA might have been when I first started vlogging or like recording videos. But in Ohio, this is where I'm really starting to get a download from the Lord. I'm really starting to grow. Like, after that situation that happened, I vowed to never be the same and to do right and to serve God. I messed up a little here and there, to be honest, but I I, I decided, honestly, still have decided to live for the Lord. Okay, I never went back. But like when I was in Ohio, still was working those other jobs like I mentioned, and I was doing here too. But this is when God really started to speak to me even more spiritually. Right when I was still in New Jersey. Well, actually, yeah, I was traveling from before I went to Ohio. I was traveling from PA to New Jersey, and when I would be in my grandmother's house, that's when I first started studying. That's when I first started to learn dream interpretation through Shaquanda. Okay, but then once I got to Ohio, God really started to pour out to me. He really started to speak to me prophetically. So I would hear him speak to me, and I would have many dreams, and I was able to interpret people's dreams online too. So I'll be watching the video, and somebody will talk about their dream, and I'll interpret it without them asking me to do it. But I would do it, or somebody will be in the comments, and I would respond to them in the comments, and then eventually I had started getting comments on my own videos. And I wasn't doing this for clout. I just had this sincere the sincerity of just wanting to help God's people and just want to have people to get to understand what was going on in their lives. I just really wanted to help them. Like, it just stirred up something in me. So yeah, God just started to speak to me more and more in Ohio. I was doing my thing, doing my videos. I started to have a strong desire to do dream interpretation online. So this channel and these videos did not start off with dream interpretation. It just started in me sharing testimonies and things like that. It started off, honestly, it first started with hair, the hairstyles I was working for. When I was in New Jersey, she encouraged me to start a YouTube channel because that's how people could meet you and you could get more clientele through YouTube during those years. And you still could too, but it's just different. So I would just do these promo videos here and there. I did a few. So that's how I started. And then once I grew more in God, I wanted to talk about God too. And so I was talking a little bit about God and doing here on this channel, sharing some of those things. And then once I got to a height, I started to share more and more videos about my faith. I shared my testimony. I shared some dream interpretation videos, and I just started getting better and better over time. And God just started to advance me more and more over time, over the years. And I had my times where I took breaks. Okay, and from then on, I also started to see me have dreams about me coming back to New Jersey. And eventually I came, okay, and God only showed me. God didn't show me nobody else in my family coming with me, no one that was in my household. He only showed me during that time. So I followed his lead, okay? So before I leave, I feel led to leave with a scripture. I felt God leading me to leave with a scripture. And the scripture is Psalm 23. So if you guys don't know Psalm 23 yet, make sure you go ahead and read it. This is something that should be a part of your daily life. This is from David. And yeah, just know that God is always with you. He's always with us, no matter what we have done wrong, no matter what season we are in our life, no matter the good and the bad that we go through, the hardships that we go through. The Lord is always here with us, okay? Don't forget to check out my community post, okay? I'll show you guys. Look at this clip right here. The community board has all the updates of the channel. If I repost anything, I have it up there. Like I mentioned before, updates. If I'm going live, I post that. Trivia, I love to have trivia with you guys. So if you haven't done trivia yet, make sure you check that out. It's all located in the community board of this channel, okay, you guys? So make sure you check that out. And I'll see you in another video. I love you guys, and I'll see you later.